Chapter 6, Faith. In this chapter, and in the book, when we talk about an error, we mean an imbalance. My manifesto. Errors are just a possibility of developing, and anything else is, to me, an outdated thought form. I'm not talking about repeated faults, as this would have the opposite effect and get phased out. The old thought form that stems from the outdated religions and cultures where, if you fail, it is tied to taboos, sins, punishment, and a possible way to hell when we die. Or when karma and reincarnation, which can be interpreted in many ways, for example, claim that you pay for what you have done in previous lives, or that you have to make up for all the mistakes you've made in other lives every time you return to Earth. First of all, we do not pay. We live, learn, and develop. This is because the way of thinking, where its consequence is punishment, ought to be replaced by the consequence that you must develop and learn. The anxiety, characterized by cultural and religious methods for learning, is outdated and inappropriate. We would end up living in an age where we are lying on the line, struggling and striving to be good enough, and the fear of not to be good enough, or become judged not to be good enough, perfect enough, beautiful enough by some concept, preferably pointing towards perfection, which is not a part of nature or the nature we were born in and with. The faith about burning in hell or returning to pay for something that happened 3,000 years ago is the kind of faith that I call outdated. This kind of faith exists in many places in the world and still has its roots in modern culture and in our family culture. I do not judge and reject other religions or whatever spiritual people believe in, no matter if it is science, heaven or hell, or reincarnation. But whatever creates anxiety inside us to be humans does not make sense to me. There is a cause why we were created the way we are. Cause and effect. If God is almighty, then God is probably in control of what God has created, namely us, perfect. Can it be that God does not have control over his work if God is eternity and love? Whether we were created by God or are further developed from the monkeys, or whatever you believe in, then we are perfect as we are, on our path of development. Our faith is secondary, but essential to our well-being and survival. We cannot survive with an external faith if we do not believe in our inner and what we were originally created to do, our combined intelligence, representing the cornerstone of our existence. Take, for example, the man jumping off a bridge due to a life circumstance, because he has lost his internal faith in himself and his existence, which basically comes from inside. I am just telling you how the world looks to me. I do not think and do not feel that there is a thought form like the above for me. I have explored all corners of the various forms of spiritualities, religions, and forms of sciences. I was brought up in a home where all kinds of faiths and sciences would be found with my parents. I lived 15 years of my life in one of the most religious countries. My home country today is Denmark, being one of the most free-thinking countries in the world. I do not exclude anything. Actually, I'm open to everything. Let us all let go of our limitations and breathe freely. I believe that everything is energy. Everything has a purpose, cause, and effect, and that we are here to develop and to be happy human beings, We are not only spiritual with a soul, or scientific human beings, but just human beings on Earth. If it were the intention that we should be spirits on Earth, then we were probably created as spirits. Right now and here, we are human beings with a core, a soul, energy, or however you would like to define it. But we are physical humans for a cause. We are energy in the physical condition. To me, it is about uniting myself as much as possible with nature's power and laws, to be in flow with my essence and consciousness, energy. I do not believe in punishment and taboos for becoming a good, pure, or acknowledged human being. Do not believe that we pay for something we have done or not done 3 lives ago. However, I believe that we are energy with a purpose, and that we are in constant development with movement, and thus have a lot of unit errors we may correct, which we can correct and find solutions to, alone and together. Whether it is a life, afterlife, or only in this life, has no bearing for my existence. My external faith is secondary in this case. I believe in balance and quality, development of the appropriate conditions, and phase out of the inappropriate conditions. I do not believe that our energy dies, so I wonder if I shall come back. The trees and nature in their constant energetic movement patterns do so, and I am part of nature. I have come to terms with the fact that I do not know, but I am curious and wish to explore. I believe in the patterns of my energetic condition as being the consciousness in the physical body I have in this life cycle human time. I believe in the abilities I have, like my intelligence. Shall I come back? I believe that we close down our physical life with the persona we have when we pass away. Is my consciousness going to come back again in a new physical shape after my phase out? Yes, the probability of my energy being established in a new condition is just as great as not being re-established, and that I shall not come back. I do not know, but I feel a clear yes, and I choose a clear yes, as I would always, at any time, choose life with its intelligence and abilities for development. I choose to believe that my intelligent, energetic condition of my consciousness is going to recreate itself physically, as I believe in us as human beings, and that the energetic condition of our intelligence is greater than just to become extinct. I believe in dualities, and to die has an opposite pole called to live. To phase out has an opposite pole called to develop, and so I could continue. The winter is not dying, it is simply phased out, and no, the same winter is never going to return. But the condition is sustained. The coming winter is going to contain bigger trees and all of the changes that nature has taken by getting 1 year older. I love life and us just like we are. We make sense. Our existence and our intelligence make sense. It's like we are looking for a meaning in our existence and a purpose outside ourselves. But the meaning is, after all of us. We cannot see the forest for the trees. Imagine if we were the best and most intelligent organisms in the universe. Why does everyone say that there are bigger, better, and wiser existences out there in space? After all, we are the ones who have found the way out to space with our technology and have evolved into what we are today. We are the ones who have created the digital world and its big potential. We are the ones who were born with emotional intelligence and love, We cannot create something which we do not have inside us. Our intelligence has created everything. I'd better stop here, but I'm trying to show another side of the case, which we often forget, but which is also probable. Actually, as probable as the hypothesis that there are other forms of intelligence in space. Maybe we are the wisest product created by the universe, and we are just on our way to develop towards our full potential. We are not using it very much yet, according to science. I believe that time has come when we must extend our intelligence and learn more about what we are able to do with our emotional intelligence and how it can strengthen our concrete and logical thinking brain, operationally intelligent, feminine and masculine, emotionally and operationally intelligent consciousnesses, winter or summer. Everything points to the age of diversities. When we have balance in our emotions, we can grow and keep balance without having to suppress our feelings, because we have not yet learned to use them to the optimum, or because we cannot balance with them so that they take over our entire thought and behavior patterns. The lack of being able to feel, understand, balance, and make use of our emotions is the cause of many of our diseases. I believe that spirituality is the story of the time. The present tense is the age of the diversities in meta-duality theory, and that we are moving towards universality in the future. We are energy, and everything is energy. I believe that cause has an effect has a consequence. Consequences create circumstances. From circumstances come experiences. Experiences bring about changes which result in renewed energy. From this we get wisdom, which becomes a cause of its own. To me, energy is my conscience, my soul, my eternity, no matter if it is 50 lives or just this life. You see, I really do not believe that we know what can be found out there, as we use such a small part of the capacity of our body and brain. We cannot even understand greatness, so should we not start at zero first? I believe that there is something which is greater than me, the infinite wholeness, because I humbly have to acknowledge that I use only a small percentage of my human capacity. Choosing to create or be part of a shifting, sustained change, we have to understand the big why and to create an understanding of the blind spot in this process. I am an organism and a part of nature where I come from the time I was born and until I pass away. The universe is infinite, without any condemnation, and is very intelligent. I think we should move towards this. I believe that I am very intelligent, and therefore I acknowledge, lie down flat, and must admit that I am not as intelligent as I or some people think yet. I have a story and some experiences, and have spent 13 years of my life creating and substantiating the theory and the philosophy you are reading about, and which include provable approaches to our concrete part, combined with our emotions. I am one of those who changed country and nationality, who stood alone and have completed an integration with success. I am one of those who have broken up with family and cultural patterns, facing so many things privately and professionally. There are many people like me. Maybe you are one of them. I am also one of those who have sought and found tools to live life a little easier, more open-minded, more in flow with nature, more happily. And I hope to give my children and all those who come after me something useful, which will make life easier for them in future. I think it is time to acknowledge the age of the dualities, meaning the diversities, and what it takes to learn to live with each other in peace and balance despite our agreements. The fact is that the opposite poles are tied together, and this is something which, today, in the present tense, we cannot escape from. It is of no significance what happened in the time of Jesus or the Prophet Muhammad, or what we predict the future to be, because life is not to predict, but life is to be lived. We cannot continue repeating the same faults as human beings. We are more intelligent than that. We are built more universally than that. We must take responsibility for ourselves and understand how fantastic we are, what we are able to do, and what we must do before we can start believing in an external faith. We are here to live a happy life. It is about integrating into knowledge in order to understand. The age of the diversities is here. We all wish to be accepted and to believe in what we want to. We all wish to be allowed to be who we think we are, regardless of gender and gender identity. We seek freedom and independence. We need values, ethics, and morals which are not based on the religions, but what our existence in balance and quality of life requires from us right now. We must learn to be ready to change when it is required of us. We are dynamic organisms and energies in development. This is our nature, our DNA, both physically and energetically, like our beautiful nature. I believe in all that I write, of course, and I am not writing about it to convince you about anything else. But maybe, as I wrote initially, if this makes you stop and become a more conscious human being, then I have my purpose. Let's get back to the topic, criticism. Being one who gives criticism is all about whether being able to set the boundaries or your conflict shyness and the polite way of taking consideration to others. It stops you from taking responsibility for the effect the error has for you. Or whether you lack self-reflection and are not receptive to the mistakes of others. What would you do if you were the one who made the error and were the receiver of the criticism? What I am relating to in all of these different scenarios is that there is no wrong error, and neither is there a wrong faith. The connection to our consciousness, intelligence, and the comprehension, capacity, ability forms our dynamic intuition. Errors create and develop our capacity, ability. A fault does not necessarily have an inappropriate consequence as its effect, if we can perceive it, handle it, and transform it into an optimization of the cause of the effect. And by this, we optimize the effect. It is going to create more space inside us and a better interaction with others, as we shall then extend our capacity, ability. For example, you've made repeated errors and do not take criticism very well. Criticism may make you feel shameful, may hit your honor about what you are doing, your bad self-esteem, etc. Then you may automatically put yourself in a condition where you are the victim whom I must take into consideration, because I have a responsibility for the criticism to be given. There are many people who are of this opinion. However, you are also the one making the fault that may have cost me waste of resources, maybe both human and economical resources. I must spend my resources handling your victim role, caused by an outdated thought pattern, which creates the inappropriate thought forms about you and faults in you. And in addition to this, I must spend a lot of resources in correcting the cause of the fault, because you have tried to make something for me for which I had to pay you. This means that I am to evaluate and approve the result. Here, we can choose to consider the situation as a possibility for development of the pattern that does not have an appropriate effect to either of us. The fault may contribute to developing us in our capacity, as it requires our comprehension, sense, and feelings to be able to move on. This is all about interchanging two different energies, the operational energy and the emotional energy, as we are talking about thoughts, feelings, money, and action. Your efforts and the energy you spend on acting to complete the task, and the energy I have to give you in the form of payment, which acknowledges what you have made, and which should preferably go up with the resources put into the task and the result. Our economic energy is just possible as all the other forms of energies, according to meta-duality theory, balance between two opposite poles so that they both exist. We use the energy which our abilities produce to carry out the task that is to be returned as energy, which is money. Individual inner shifting, sustained change, transformation, inner strength, and growth are the link to the future with an evolving mindset. The sustainable person, self-management. To give, to get. What do we do when the result is not good enough, is flawed, or just not what we expected? It is not that you have to put resources into the task, but there are faults in the system you have worked with and in. There, you have a huge responsibility for your reaction and patterns of action towards the criticism given to you. Maybe you are using your resources in an inappropriate way. Maybe you are missing to gain some required knowledge. Or maybe you do not yet have the competence the task requires from you. Maybe the criticism is not quite justified for you, but it is to the one who gives it. No matter what, when the criticism requires that you must be able to balance with all the emotions appearing when it is given. You see, the moment you reject the criticism, then you have blocked the opportunities being the consequence of the error, and an inappropriate pattern is going to appear, which again is going to face even more criticism from the one who gives the criticism. Cause and effect, you know. You're going to meet the first rejection, result not approved, with a rejection. Minus against minus. Phasing out rejection. Everything in life is about our reactions based on and from the way we use our inner compass like. Our emotional intellect, dynamic intuition, and our operational intellect, organic instincts. However, you didn't make the error on purpose or have had any intention of making the error. On the contrary, you believe that you've done your best and what you believe was right. The moment you make the result right or wrong, then you are the cause why others may contradict you claiming that something is wrong. Condemnation is inappropriate. However, to assess or evaluate the consequences is something quite different. We must go all the way back and look at the cause being with us who have made the fault. Maybe the fault is that we should have said no to the task. It does not matter. There is a fault which all parties may use for a development. Appropriate or inappropriate, there is no right or wrong. This is about appropriate or inappropriate being the cause of improving the cause and thus the effect. However, one must be conscious about one's own comprehension and ability to comprehend other people's criticism and thereby one's own errors, capacity, ability. So it takes two to find a balance in finding the solution for both the consequence and the cause. It is your responsibility to find the cause of why the error has occurred. Too much pressure, lacking passion, too stressed, lacking competence? Too high thoughts about your competences? Have you underestimate what the task requires? The reaction to the fault is to generate an even bigger error by going into victimhood or self-defense. Is the one giving the criticism totally wrong? Has anyone else made the fault, etc.? The point is that you did not intend to make the error initially, and that you perceive the fault to be something destructive. Already here is the first cause, because everything in nature and us must balance and is in motion. For instance, because there will be errors that constantly create the cause, the balance must be maintained. If you do not have more respect, ability of self-reflection, self-understanding, or self-recognition due to bad self-esteem, then you are likely to end up generating even bigger errors by not being able to handle that you have actually failed. The error is being part of you, who you are, and your whole nature, to be able to develop yourself and to evolve. When you reject yourself and one of your basic elements due to a negative ego, then you are absolutely going to criticize the critic. As you are moving in the dualities, the error occurs as an opposite pole to an outdated thought form saying no fault, and thus the opposite pole is the opposite pole with the purpose of re-establishing the balance inside you. Error. Here, you can use the fault you made and the person who gives you the criticism to develop and create the balance in the imbalance inside you, which is actually the cause why the error initially occurred. Everything is about cause and effect. The cause and effect of a thought is the consequence of the reaction we get from the outside world. Thus, we must always go all the way back to the core inside us and look at cause and effect for the consequence inside ourselves. The error may try to tell you that you need some time off, meaning to take care of yourself. The error may tell you that you are working with the wrong tasks, that are not following your passions or what you are good at, but that you are doing this for the money. The error may tell you that now you have the opportunity to be curious and learn more, get wiser and acquire greater learning. The error may be used to learn setting some boundaries for oneself and others, self-love, a positive ego. The error can be used to put us back on track. The fault trains us to develop, extend, and make use of our capacity, ability, to comprehend and perceive ourselves and challenges in more appropriate way, which benefits everyone with a more balanced way of living. The error helps us find the balance inside us, to find other productive thought forms about ourselves and our being than the outdated thought form of self-blame, shame, or bad self-esteem. Failures which we and other people make are fantastic, because faults are always the way to success and balance, and thus happiness. To understand action and results, it is all about the integration with the knowledge every situation derives from. The critic also has a responsibility to themselves and the receiver. When I say no to your error, I free myself and the receiver. When I say no to your fault, I free myself from wasting my resources. And by this, space is created inside me and my process for development. Extended capacity, because I do not want to compromise or settle anymore. In this case, it is no longer just about inappropriate errors, but that I use the error for optimization of my system. Here, I use my whole capacity ability, which again must be limited by setting clear boundaries for the receiver to handle criticism about an error caused by them. I have become conscious that the dynamics we contribute to are no good for either of us anymore. I have developed further in the process. My consciousness has developed further. By this, I have the responsibility to react, to set up a boundary of a pattern caused by an outdated thought form which is not mine. However, I am probably the opposite pole to the previous learning to somebody else. Here, we enter ethics and morals based on integrity, and not on concepts learned from culture, religion, or societal norms. As I am developing on an individual level, then I exercise my free will and point out an error which often has big consequences for others. I shall have to choose on and off which other parties involved had not counted on. Here we enter coincidences and coincidence ability. Coincidences are likely to appear to you if you had not counted on my reaction or do not wish to recognize the error. At this stage, I am probably conscious about the process and no longer wish to accept my waste of resources, and neither do I want to compromise myself and my resources. So we shall end up in a conflict. We cannot meet in a duality concept anymore, as this would require my comprehension and energy, and thus my resources. The confirmation and recognition you seek energy for cannot come from me. Errors and rejections from your side have helped me set a boundary, as what you contribute with is of no benefit to me anymore. And as I have developed further from our common consciousness platform, have stopped giving energy to your need. This cooperation is going to end in a conflict and eventually in a phase out. It may also be that I am now ready to break a pattern, which I have been conscious about for a long time, but for which I have not been prepared to make the required change until now. Once in a while, enough is just enough. However, it doesn't mean that I have to judge your error to be wrong, just inappropriate for me. I can only relate to cause and effect of the errors and circumstances they create for me, whether they are beneficial or inappropriate. In my change process, I want to be quality-based and balanced. There is no constructive criticism, only criticism. Not many of us can handle not being recognized, may, for instance, perceive it an infringement of our being, the value of us and what we give. Here, we get hit at our negative ego, which defines us, defines our being and values based on other people's confirmations and recognitions. This could be if I, giving the criticism, do not have an appropriate intention. Maybe I react to some not yet clarified thought forms inside me, which criticize me and thus you. It is so important that we make an evaluation of cause and effect, and thus the consequences of what it leads to for the receiver. The intention creates the circumstances. If you stand strong in yourself, then you are not going to take an inappropriate critique to heart. but you are going to relate to it and make an evaluation of cause and effect, and thus not reject it, but handle it. You would never take it personally if you are conscious about cause and effect of the error. You would recognize it and find a solution to restore a balanced result, which would please you and the critic. Alternatively, you may set a boundary and break the dynamics the critic contributes with, as it is not your responsibility. The conflict may create an opportunity to phase out a cooperation or relation, which both parties are happy about. Maybe our cooperation, which all of a sudden doesn't run in flow anymore, maybe doesn't benefit us, doesn't benefit the development path of our consciousness, as we perceive and deal with the same matter with two different abilities, which our system perceives and our collective consciousness work from. An error requires resources to restore the balance, but it also offers us some possibilities for development and teaches us how to use our resources in a more optimized way appropriately. This applies to our economic and materialistic resources, as well as our economically energetic resources. Sustained quality of life depends on a balanced understanding of the importance of sustainability in all aspects of life. The distance between right and wrong. What if there were no right or wrong, but only the distance between the two concepts? How would we then define ourselves, others, and the systems which we are part of or create? How would we structure ourselves or the system so that nobody doubts the boundaries, the division of tasks, the definition of targets and purposes? If our cause and effect were tied to each other in a chain reaction, would we then not judge ourselves when we judge other people? Well, now it's getting interesting. At least I'm curious. We are always talking about whether we should take responsibility for ourselves, stay on our court, and so on. But how about the other not functional parts in the system we are part of, or the system we create? Their effect will be our cause, and vice versa. So, again, we have two sides of the matter, two opposite poles that are not separated and are depending on each other. There are only strong or weak components, no wrong or right ones. There is a minus and a plus. This has been proven, and this we know. We are born in the dualities, night and day, summer and winter, man and woman, and even our body and brain are built on the dualities, feminine and masculine parts inside us. Then we also know that sometimes we are better at being the masculine part of us, and sometimes the winter is harder than usual. They are just the designation of a condition. Our circumstances decide the reactions which create our conditions. Our conditions change our circumstances. Our thought form creates our circumstances and conditions. This is a wonderful way to observe ourselves. Right or wrong does not exist. Everything is situation-based.